Long before the arrival of the Europeans, our ancestors were living in states and in kingdoms, doing their day-to-day activities, moving from one place to the other in search of resources, good land, good water. So those with the land want to protect what they have, and those without it want to get access. So they always went for war. These were not wars to kill each other, but rather to take possession of the land, the resources, and then the people. The people were very important to them during that era. They were using the expertise of these people for their own good and for the good of the people who got access to them.
Now that space was also very monumental because that was the spot where all the enslaved people from all over the world met and they had their last bath. That was the place where they were also auctioned off. Every single enslaved person, whether it was from Benin, whatever place it was, they were met there, had their last bath before they left.
Like physical, emotional, I felt something when I seen that water. I was like, okay, wow.
Those who died and were buried here, those whose ashes were spread here, the freedom fighters whose pictures are on the wall, who fought for the freedom of the black race, the thousands of our ancestors that died and were dumped in the forest, and those who died and were dumped in the river. Anytime we enter into the yard and we bow to their memory and we bow to say thank you to them. So right here behind me is the Ancestral graveyard. That's a place of paying homage to our ancestors and then giving them that respect they are due. Those group of Europeans who arrived here were the Portuguese. They came to a community called Elmina. That wasn't the name of the community. The community's original name was Anumansan, irresistible water. But when the Portuguese got there, because of the volume of gold they saw around, they named the place the mine. In Portuguese language, that is Almina. That name was corrupted from Almina into Elmina, and that has been the name of the community up to it. And then the metal bowl. This is connected to this, and then they have it. As many people as they have, all of them being connected by this chain and this metal ball. Having something like this connected to this and on your feet, they were dragging it. Dragging their feet all the way from wherever they were captured from. So they finally got to the market here.
All this dragging on your feet. This is crazy.
And they needed to drag this on the ground.
3 months of walking?
6 months.
6 months of walking
yes, with this.
At least 10 pounds or so.
It is
Very, very.
for months to do this, yes.
Our ancestors were not in shoes nicely like the way we are in shoes and slippers from here. They walked barefooted, in chains and in shackles, walking across several rivers and passing through several forests until they finally get here. We will be making this journey to the river. Out of respect to our ancestors, we'll be removing our footwear. I do it all the time. Not out of disrespect to you, but out of respect to our ancestors.
That was one thing I wanted to make sure I did. I said, I want my feet to touch the soil and the ground that my ancestors felt. And it felt very grounding in that it was empowering to know that I can walk freely where they once were not able to walk freely. That I had a choice. I could touch the walls and then leave, but they didn't have a choice. So it was very important for me.
Wherever they go to, the kind of common materials they have around were what they were chained to. There were instances they were chained to trees. There were certain places they were chained to rocks. Materials like this, as heavy as it is, they use the chains to chain to it, to keep them grounded, so that the individuals in chains will not be able to escape. We see that we have a lot of We have a lot of bamboos on the path painted red and black. All the way from here till we get to the river, we'll see more of the bamboos this way. We use colors in communicating from this part of the world. Red and black when we are mourning the death of loved ones, and white when we are celebrating or when we are in celebratory mood.
This is where they walked their last step before they got traded off, and other things that were happening. I usually don't walk barefoot, but me doing that, if I felt every step.
So there are several remains that were left in this forest, but we have never tried doing excavation from here. The reason being that we want our ancestors, those who died and were done in here, we want them to have that rest.
No going back. You're either going to die, and to hear the stories of how they took our ancestors and just the ones who perished just threw them in the river or threw them in the woods to let the animals eat them. It was just like there was no respect for another human being.
When we started walking, I felt the spirit of the ancestors, my people.
Whilst chained to the trees and the bamboos we have around here to wait, they were being fed a bit better than they were fed along the journey. Not because they loved them, to be able to get them fattened up before they were auctioned off into slavery. 3 activities happened from here. The first one is the last bath. The first auction, and then the first branding. There is another river that comes all the way from here. It is always calm, always calm. I believe it has seen so much atrocities. That is why it is calm. It doesn't want to talk.
When I got to the river and the tour guide was telling us about that place where they did the slave trade, or they banned the men or the women, the ones that were purchased, and I looked in the river, all I could say to myself is, I need to step in that river.
Experience at the river, it was very difficult to hear what they endured there as well, but it was also, I guess, kind of renewing at the river it felt like the official welcome home, to be able to wash ourselves with the water that our ancestors were in before they were shipped off.
It made me who I am. Because I always knew I have to make my ancestor proud, and I always said one day I am going to bring my ancestor back through me, setting my foot on the soil of Ghana and wherever else. You know, my daughter, she went to Benin. She also brought part of her ancestor back because part of her ancestry is from Benin, Togo.
They adorned those things, and those chains were not jewelry, they were not options. And so it made me, again, I think over and over again, each experience just reminded me of the freedom and the choice that I have. That I was born during a time where I have options where others did not, and that I adorned myself with things like chains, but they're beautification, they're not restrictions, and they're not ways to contain me.
I remember thinking, you know, yeah, my feet are a little swollen, so it was a little uncomfortable, but people are walking like this for like weeks and months on end. Like, that's just crazy. Putting my feet in the water, also, I felt kind of anxious. I'm not a great swimmer, so seeing like how, seeing how some of the water was, I was like, yo, I don't want to slip and fall because I don't know what's gonna happen. So I was kind of nervous, but actually putting my feet in the water and even having my feet to the ground, it definitely felt, it felt like connect. I just felt connection. I really did.
Both became my angels in June and November of 2015. My mom passed on my birthday, which is November 28th, which is the reason that I'm here. It's just a coincidence. I carry them with me everywhere I go when I travel now. I had no idea that this is going to be part of our journey, but I feel like, as Kofi said, it was meant to be. So I get to bring y'all back home. You're back home now. Back home.
That was very peaceful for her as well, and I'm glad that she was able to do that, and I'm glad that she has peace because knowing her personally, I know how much she loved her parents.
Once I leave this earth, I can make arrangements to have my remains spread in the river there, and I think I'm going to try to make that, put it in my will for that to happen for me, for my kids to bring me back home, my final resting place to be Ghana.
Freedom!
It tastes like mango right now.
Okay.
It tastes sweet.
Definitely mango. So there's cocoa in here?
Yeah.
Wow, I would have never known that the outside of cocoa tastes like mango. It's just sweet.
Mango?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. To me.
Dry beans and then make the chocolate. Can I bite the seed?
No.
No, don't bite it.
That's all I ever have. Redemption song.
Just a song for your video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.